Test? Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go and try it again. Welcome to the Special Planning Commission meeting scheduled for Wednesday, June the 18th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. We're going to go ahead and kick off, and our new Commissioner, Margarita Valenzuela, will be leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome.
Thank you. Place your hand over your head or your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for leading the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Osaeta,
Present.
Commissioner Castañeda, Commissioner Prieto,
Present.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Present.
Commissioner Valenzuela.
Present.
I, Kimberly Hernandez, Housing Assistant, certify that a true and correct copy of the foregoing meeting agenda was properly posted on June 12, 2025, 72 hours prior to the scheduled meeting as required by law. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54952.3, disclosure of compensation for meeting attendance by the Planning Commission is $125 per meeting.
The first item on the consent calendar.
Yeah, we're on the consent calendar. And just to let you know, we did get comments back from the public, an email for item number 2 on the consent calendar. And for item number 1, just to let you know, that's just the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, May 20th. If you were not present, Commissioner Valenzuela, you're welcome to be excused from that. You can recuse yourself.
Yeah, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Would that be correct?
Well, I guess since we do have comments on item number 2, what we can do is pull that from the consent calendar, and then we can have discussion on it afterwards.
Okay.
And usually you do open it up to the public to take any public comment, just in case.
Okay. So we'll just wait a minute so that we won't start something without our commissioner. Hello. So John, can you reiterate how we move forward here?
Sure. Yeah, usually on the consent calendar, these are items that you can actually make one motion and approve them all, or make one action just to do everything, for all the items on the consent calendar. If somebody wants to pull an item from the consent calendar, then you're welcome to pull that off for discussion. Otherwise, you are welcome to make one motion on the entire consent calendar. But you usually do open it up for the public in case anybody's out there to make any comments.
Okay. So do we have any comments on any items on the consent calendar?
We did receive an email from Mr. Mario Dominguez. Again, I will be summarizing these emails, but I do provide copies to the Planning Commission. Mr. Mario Dominguez stated in his email criticizing the item report as poorly constructed, lacking context, analysis, and maps, and not meeting City Council standards. He graded it a C- and insisted that future reports follow the Council's format. He's also asking if the site is contaminated and what pollutants are present, if remediation is needed, and the timeline for construction.
Thank you.
So just to give the Planning Commission some context, I did email back Mr. Dominguez about that, and we used a cover sheet on the software program Granicus that we have for preparing the agendas, and it was really just used to kind of separate out the agendas so that it wasn't all bundled up. That's really why it was used. I understand. I guess we haven't used that format that you see there, but it is really just gives the commission some information on the agenda item number and a little bit of context. For the standard agenda build that we usually use, that council uses and we use for Planning Commission, we're still planning to use that for public hearing items.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioners, any thoughts on the consent calendar or any comments, any additional comments?
Did you want to go through each item on the consent calendar and make a motion for each one, or just one motion at the end for both?
If I can just ask my fellow commissioners if there's any, if any item would like to be pulled, do you guys want to pull any specific? I know Commissioner Prieto.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions on the expiration of the conditional use permit for the Starbucks.
So I would recommend that we pull item number 2 on the consent calendar for further discussion. You are welcome to vote on the minutes for the May 20th meeting.
Great.
Okay. So consent calendar, item 1, Planning Commission minutes for May 20th, 2025. The Planning Commission will consider approval of the minutes for the regular Planning Commission meeting of May 20th, 2025.
Could we get a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Prieto,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Valenzuela,
I abstain. I was.
oh, sorry, Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Chairperson Osaeta,
Yes.
motion passes. For item number 2, expiration of conditional use permit number 23-0032 for a property located at 9501 Atlantic Avenue. This item is to report that conditional use permit number 23-0032 approved by the Planning Commission on March 5th, 2024 has expired per condition number 13 of resolution number 2024-01. The project was for a takeout-only building pad cafe with drive-through for a property located at 9501 Atlantic Avenue. The applicant was informed of the expiration on May 22nd, 2025. The recommendation is for the Planning Commission to receive and file.
Commissioner Prieto?
Thank you. John, I had a question regarding the letter that was sent out. So the letter was in response to, well, actually, the letter was sent out on 5/22, and I wanted to know if they responded.
I do know that our staff has been in contact with the applicant. The applicant had been notifying staff about the items, and they understood that if they hadn't been moving forward with the project, that it would expire. So, we tried to work with the applicant on there, but ultimately it did pass the expiration date. We sent out the letter to the applicant letting them know that it's expired, and they are welcome to submit another application at a future date if they want to move forward with it.
Okay, so I guess that leads to my next question. If they can reapply for the CPU permit, and if so, what are the procedures, and if there's additional fees? And I'm asking just because I wanted to know for future reference. This is the first time this happens while I've been on the commission, wanted to know standard practice.
Right. Yeah, so they are welcome to submit for another conditional use permit. They would have to pay the fees all over again. It would be the same process. We would have to review it at the staff level. And then once it's complete, we would send out the public hearing notices. That gets mailed out to people 1,000 feet within the subject property. And there's a 10-day noticing period. The notice is also posted in the Daily Breeze 10 days prior. And then we come here to the Planning Commission and bring the item before you as a public hearing. So anybody that wants to attend, anybody that received the notice through mail or they saw the notice in the newspaper are welcome to attend the Planning Commission and comment on the item.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the commissioners? No? So we can go ahead and move.
Yeah, and I can provide a little bit more background on that. I mean, we are willing to work with the applicant to the extent possible. As long as we're working in good faith, moving the project forward, we can see that as being kind of an extension on there. We won't actually allow for extensions, but as long as they're moving in good faith and they show that they're moving forward with the project, they've provided or expended some money in there and they were able to move the project forward, then it would not have made this.
Yeah, sometimes we can finesse it if they're not actually to commence the use, but if they have accomplished some of the prerequisite conditions as far as grading the property or starting construction, then we can interpret that as having put the permit to use to allow them to continue. But by city ordinance, any permit issued by the city expires within 1 year if it's not used. So we don't have complete flexibility to just grant extensions to things like this.
And my understanding is the applicant was in contact with staff and they had indicated that, I guess at this point, it wasn't viable to move forward with this project at this time. So they weren't willing to expend any more time or energy to move this project forward. And they understood that it would expire, so.
Thank you for the additional information. Any other questions by commissioners? Are we ready to move forward on this? Okay. Can we get a motion?
This is Liz. I so move.
I second.
Okay. Commissioner Prieto,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Valenzuela,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Chairperson Osaeta.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll be moving on to the open session items. Item number 1, reorganization of the Planning Commission to nominate and select a new chair and vice chair for the Planning Commission.
Do we open it up to public comment first? Or how does this, first time I'm going through this here?
No, this is not
public
hearing.
comment
It's
here.
not something that you need public.
Okay.
You all just need to decide among yourselves who wants to hold that gavel and who wants to be the assistant.
That being said, I do believe we did receive one correspondence via email from Mr. Dominguez.
Yes.
And before Kimberly reads that into the record, I just want to let the planning commission know this is something that we do pretty much every year at this time of the year, the end of the fiscal year in June, to select the vice and the chair and the vice chair. I don't believe there's any term limits on there, so you can actually be on there, I guess, indefinitely as long as you're on the commission.
There has to be an election every year, but if you are happy with the status quo and want to elect the same folks for a second term, you're free to do that.
Right. Currently, we do have a chair, but the vice chair position is vacant. Yes, yeah.
So we did receive an email comment from Mr. Mario Dominguez. Mr. Mario Dominguez expressed strong support for Jimmy Osaeta to remain as chairperson of the Planning Commission, citing his effective leadership, genuine concern for the community, and active involvement in charitable efforts such as delivering groceries to those in need. He noted that his participation in both Planning Commission and City Council meetings reflects his dedication to improving the city. Additionally, he emphasized his familiarity with running meetings as an important quality for a commissioner. For the position of vice chairperson, he recommended Lizette Ruiz, highlighting her deep commitment to the city's progress and well-being of its residents. He described her as an accomplished environmental scientist who actively participates in city council meetings and shows a strong dedication to public service.
Any other comments?
No more
Oh.
comments.
Okay. I guess maybe I'll start with thanking my colleagues here for allowing me to be your chair. I think when I joined the commission, the first thing I said is I didn't join the commission for a title. I joined the commission because I wanted to serve the community. I was just fortunate enough to be nominated as your chair. But I really kind of open it up to my colleagues here to see if anybody else is interested in taking on this role. I always emphasize that at the end of the day, we all have one vote, right? And all our votes are important, and they all carry the same weight. So on that front, any nominations or anybody else that's interested in any of the chairman position or chairperson position or the vice chairperson position? I open it up for discussion from my colleagues here.
I nominate Liz.
I second that.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yes, I accept.
Roll call, right? Is that for for what position?
For the chair?
For the chairman position?
Yeah,
Should we do the chair and the vice chair together?
I would do them separately.
Separately? Separate motions?
Yeah, separate
Okay.
motion, and were you nominating Liz for the
chair
chair?
position. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, so vote on that.
Okay. So Commissioner Prieto,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Valenzuela,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Chairperson Osaeta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And now we open it up for the vice chair. I will make a nomination for Daisy Prieto for the vice chair.
You beat me to it. I second. You beat me to it.
Commissioner Prieto,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Valenzuela,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Chairperson Osaeta.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So I believe at this point, it's
That
proper.
was good.
Yeah, we
Shuffle.
Shuffle. Yeah.
I'll take that seat over there. Well, I guess before I transition, thank you all for the opportunity to be the chairperson for this commission. But ultimately, like I said, it's all of you have a voice, and I'm just really privileged to be here with you all.
I agree. And I think I have big shoes to follow. So I really appreciate the just the trust that my colleagues have in me, and I'll definitely put it my all and not let any of you down. But thank you. I'm very deeply honored. All right. Wait, do we have to?
What would you like to say?
Oh, I thought we were gonna do it in the next one. I lose my chair for my bag. A ver, aquí me atoré. Oh, sorry.
Watch the before you fall over there, we lose our chairperson right away.
We're good? Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So continuing on with the next item, where are we at? Permit, organization. So now, under the open session items, we'll continue with the workshop understanding the Brown Act. And who's this handed off to?
Thank you, Chair Ruiz. This item is a workshop item. It's really an educational item for the Planning Commission and for anybody in the public to understand more about the Brown Act. I've asked our Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Craig Hardwick, to sort of prepare this, and him and his office have put his presentation for you. And so we'll get that presentation loaded onto our screen, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Hardwick to give the presentation. But just to give you a little bit of background on the Brown Act, it's really, I guess, the orders, conducts, that the Planning Commission would take and the City Council in order to have a public meeting. And so with that, the presentation is loaded. I'll hand it over to Mr. Hardwick.
Okay. All righty, folks. Good news is that you don't have to take any action on this at all. You just have to listen. So there's almost no pressure. The bad news is that if you knowingly violate the Brown Act and deprive the public of information that they are entitled to, that's a misdemeanor. So a little bit of pressure, but not much. If we could have the next slide. I'm going to start off with my favorite quote, I think, of any piece of legislation I've ever seen, this statute. So I'm going to read it out loud here. This is from the Brown Act. The people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. The people insist on remaining informed so that they may retain control over the instruments they have created. That just drives home the purpose of this is that we're all here to serve the public. We're not here to keep any information away from them. We're not allowed to keep any information away from them, with some few very limited exceptions, which we'll talk about later, and which apply mostly to the city council rather than to this commission. Have the next slide. So tonight, I'll just go through this, tell you what the purposes of this Brown Act are, what it seeks to accomplish, how it tries to do that, and what the key concepts are. I'll probably screw it up if you hand it to me, but sure. All right. So there we. So do I just scroll through it here? Excellent. Okay. Did I pass one? No, I didn't. Okay. So what purpose does it accomplish? It regulates meetings, and meetings can mean anything really. The way the Brown Act defines these meetings. I can find it here in the middle of this mess. By the way, the Brown Act, it's only 13 sections it's stated to be a span of 13 sections. Doesn't seem like a whole lot. It's 40 pages. So it covers quite a bit. But a meeting of a legislative body, which you folks constitute for purposes of this, means any congregation of a majority of the members. It's not just when you're up here sitting. If you all find yourselves together at Starbucks and you start talking about city matters, you're at a meeting and you're governed by the Brown Act. In fact, about a year ago, I walked out of one of these meetings and 3 of the commissioners were standing in a group having a conversation. And I half jokingly asked them, you guys aren't talking about city matters, are you? And they assured me they were just talking about one of their grandmothers. So it was okay. But it regulates what you can do at this meeting, who can come to the meeting, how the public is allowed to speak at the meeting, and what you can do to enforce these rules if things get out of hand, which I don't think things are going to get out of hand tonight. We don't have a big crowd here, so that's good. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. I told you I'd mess this up. Okay, so the full name is the Ralph M. Brown Act. It was enacted before any of us were born here. So it's been around a long time. It applies to all public bodies. That includes the city council, and it includes U5 here. And there you can see it's established by sections 54950 through 54963 of the government code. Sounds innocent, but it's a hefty piece of legislation, and it's been being enforced and tweaked here and there for over 70 years. Again, am I going the wrong way? Yeah. See. All right. Did I do that right? Yes. Okay. It applies, like I say, whenever there's a congregation of a majority of you folks, that it comes into play. Whenever you're discussing city business or making any actions, you have to comply with the requirements of the Brown Act. One of those things it requires is the fact that you have a quorum to get started. There's a lot of very picky things in this act that explains why we give you folks such a hard time and interrupt you occasionally and tell you, no, you can't say this, or we've got to wait, or you can't talk about that, but maybe later you can talk about it a little. Okay, I am still okay. I'm going this way. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not repeating what I've told you before here. It pertains to okay. It regulates some of your individual conversations with others. It's going to regulate not only what you say at meetings, but some of the things that you can say at on your social media accounts, or when you are out at other city functions. But as you can see here, the list of most situations when you're safe from not having to apply the Brown Act is when you're having one-on-one conversations with someone, or if you show up to a city council meeting and want to step up to the microphone and have your say there. You're not limited by the Brown Act just because of your involvement on this panel. Although occasionally that can create tricky situations if you're up there discussing something that is before the city council and then it gets booted back to this board, then you have to worry about, do I need to recuse myself now because of something that I said at that meeting? You don't have to worry about it generally if, one of you has a birthday party and invites everybody else. Yeah, you can show up. You don't have to invite members of the public to the birthday party, but just do not discuss city matters when you're there. Okay, the intent, as we've discussed, is to make sure that whatever goes on here is heard by the public. It's not a secret organization. It's you're doing the people's business, and the legislature, mandates that all of us conduct ourselves in a way that is open to the folks who have put us all here and who we're all here to serve. The slide here talks about the fact that this is it applies to regular meetings of this board, special meetings, and even emergency meetings. It also goes into detail about procedures for adjourning meetings and continuing meetings. So there's at least 4 code sections in here where they establish rules about how that can be conducted. So a lot of the stuff that you see us doing here is not just a whim of the city, but it is something that is mandated by law. Usually, it starts with the city manager, or with respect to this body, often the director of community development. The staff will be here to make recommendations to you. They'll post the agendas as required by law, but again, those recommendations are just recommendations. You all folks in public session will debate and consider those things. Let's see, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Okay, I like this. I credit Raul for this title, No Secret Sauce. This is I've stolen his city council presentation and tweaked it for you folks. But among the things that the Brown Act mandates is that you guys cannot have a secret ballot. One of the reasons that we do roll call ballots here is to make it easier for the folks who are listening in to know, how everyone has voted. But you can't have a situation where it's a very political situation and no one wants to be accused of favoritism or something else. So you can't just all put your votes in a hat and pass it down. We actually have to know which of you have voted yay or nay on everything. That 72-hour agenda posting is a requirement. A lot of the times we will want to put something on the agenda for you folks, but it comes in at the last minute. And if we don't have 72 hours notice, we tend to post. It's Thursday nights that we post on, right? Yeah.
Correct, yes.
So that we'll have the agenda finalized Thursday night, so that not only you guys have enough time to read it and comprehend it, but so that we're complying with law by letting members of the public know that we're not just throwing something on the schedule at the last minute that nobody has a chance to prepare for. Yeah, everybody has 3 days notice minimum of finding out what you folks are going to be talking about and deciding. There are, in most instances, and definitely in all hearings, there's a public comment period. There's actually 2. There's one for the public to comment on specific agenda items, and then normally you guys can't talk about anything that's not on the agenda, but the members of the public can, which is why we have that open call at the end where they can come up and bring to your attention any of their concerns about anything that's not on the agenda. Again, you have to make all your decisions in public. That limited exceptions, we'll talk in a minute. That refers to closed session meetings. We'll touch briefly on those. Okay, public, is that where I am here? See, I should really be better at this. Okay, again, you hear comments on agendized items. You can hear comments on non-agendized items. They have to be tied to city business. If someone wants to get up to the microphone during the open session meeting and start talking about the trip he took to Disneyland this week, that's not something that you have to hear. It must be confined to city businesses. They can't be disruptive, and we will get into some of the rules for that, which you're probably already familiar with. And you can impose time constraints. You normally, when there's a long line, you'll see that you've limited speakers to 3 minutes, which is something that you're allowed to do under this. You also may have noticed that when a Spanish-speaking person gets up to the microphone and has an interpreter, we give them 6 minutes. We're doing that not only out of the goodness of our heart, but because the Brown Act requires it. If you've set a time limit for someone to speak, and you've got a non-simultaneous translator for that person gets twice as much time. So, what are disruptive comments? Basically anything that interferes with your doing the job that you are assigned to do here. The city needs to handle its business, and you don't really need to take, if someone wants to get up and start a riot or start rabble rousing, or I know we've had to admonish people not to cheer and hoot and holler. But if it gets bad, you actually have the right, I guess now you're the chair here. One of the things you can do with that gavel is actually order that the room be cleared. And you can kick out everybody except for members of the press, unless they're the ones causing the trouble. You can also remove an individual speaker who is preventing you folks from doing your business. Although with recent changes to the Brown Act, you do need to give that person a warning first. But the goal is, yes, this is not a secret organization, but also you've got work to do. So we can't let the audience get away with too much. Closed session meetings. These are it says there are limited exceptions, and they are limited exceptions, even though there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sections and subsections in this act, which allow you to go behind closed doors and talk privately. The four big areas of that, and again, this is it's something mostly that you're going to encounter if you're on the city council rather than on this board. Personnel matters, real property negotiations, litigation, and labor negotiations. And there are valid reasons why discussions of this kind should not be open in public. I mean, if you have a personnel matter that you're going to be discussing, a possible poor performance by a city employee, that's not really necessarily something that everyone out in the audience needs to hear about. If the city is thinking about buying a piece of property, you can imagine you wouldn't want folks saying in open session, well, we hope we can buy that property for $1 million, but we'd probably be willing to pay $2 million. That wouldn't be an effective negotiating strategy. So the law allows that. And litigation, but you see there's a little line there. The existing and threatened litigation, that's when somebody is suing or threatening to sue the city. The anticipated litigation is when the city is considering suing somebody else. Those are the types of situations where you're allowed to, the decision makers meet in private with the city attorney and discuss the merits of the lawsuits and whether or not you should sue or settle. All of those things, you don't want the details of those discussions floating around in the public. But it's not completely secret because these are just some of the examples. Before going into a one, you have to agendize what you're going to discuss on the closed session. And there are a number of safe harbor phrases that you can use on the agenda to ensure that you're not violating the Brown Act. Before you go into closed session, you have to let the public know that you're going to step into the private area and you're going to have these closed session discussions. You have to let them know what you're going to be discussing and with whom you're going to be having the discussions. And the Brown Act limits the people that you can and cannot discuss with in the closed session. And then if you take any action, well, you have to report out when you leave. You have to report whether or not you took any action, and if you did take an action, you would have to report it. It could be something like, making an offer to purchase a piece of property or electing to settle a certain piece of, so you don't have to divulge the full contents of all the discussions, but you do have to briefly indicate the action that you took. All right, that's just some of the stuff I just talked about there. Again, yeah, reporting out here. These if there's anything there that I didn't mention, real estate, settlement of litigation. Okay, well, labor union. Again, if you're discussing what you're going to pay the employees, that's eventually obviously going to become public information. But if you're balancing, should we pay the police department less so that we can pay the public works workers more? Maybe a valid question, but not something that a lot of folks would be comfortable discussing in a public forum, and would make you less effective if you were worried about offending one part of the constituency over the other while you're making important economic decisions. So you have to report out the ultimate result of your discussions, but we don't. Everybody can't be invited into the room to hear what's going on there. Okay, we're going to move on to how the internet and conference calls and Zoom and all those things have made our lives more complicated. The Brown Act has recently been updated to address things like this, and I want to point out one thing that's not in the slides, just because it has come up here recently. We used to have the system set up during COVID when folks could not only listen in, but they could respond and talk. We could open the mic, and instead of just having to be there, they could respond from home. We've switched away from that, and now we've got it's a one-way system. The public can hear, they can't participate, and there have been questions when sometimes that system doesn't work. And some folks have asked, well, if the web link isn't working now, does that mean we have to stop the meeting? With a one-way system, no, you don't. It's the Brown Act makes a distinction between what do they call it? Webcasting, which is just the one-way system that we're doing now, versus teleconferencing or others. So if your teleconferencing system goes down, then sometimes you do have to discontinue the meeting or pause it while you can try to get things fixed. Here, while we try to make sure that our webcasting is working as often as we can, if there's a catastrophic failure and it stops, we don't have to stop the meeting for that. And also another thing that is very helpful. It saves the city money. It saves everybody time. By law, as you've probably already seen, all of your agendas are posted on the city's website, and they're not buried 6 screens deep. They're on the home page. That is something that is required by the Brown Act, so that it's easier for the public to know when you guys are meeting, where you're meeting, and what you're going to talk about. Okay, internet-based social media. There's lots of rules in here about what you can and can't do. This is one more area where you can inadvertently get yourself in trouble. If I could find section 54952.23, I will tell you a little bit about those. Bear with me here. Because I would like to read some of these to you, because it's it's a situation that you may find yourself in, and I don't want you to wonder whether or not you can do this or not. I really should have just put it on the slide. Wouldn't that have been a good idea? Okay. All right. Okay. Here we go. Okay, this doesn't, the Brown Act's rules on internet use, it doesn't prevent you from engaging in separate conversations or communications on an internet-based social media platform to answer questions, provide information to the public, or solicit information from the public regarding a matter that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of this council. You can do all that stuff. What you can't do, a majority of you, the five of you, cannot use internet-based social media to discuss among yourselves, businesses of a specific nature that's within the subject matter of the legislative body. So my son uses Discord a lot. He loves it. I don't understand it. But three of you can't form your own little Discord channel and send emails back and forth to each other discussing what you're going to do at the next meeting. That's a violation of the Brown Act. I'm sure none of you do it. I hope all of you know how to use Discord. I don't know how to use it at all. It is a developing area of law. And one thing that I kind of laughed about, and that when they say no comments, they mean no comments. Discuss among themselves means communication made, posted, or shared on an internet-based social media platform between members of a legislative body, including comments or use of digital icons. So emojis are out. You can't give a thumbs up to somebody. You can't, ha ha. You can't have a smiley face or a frowny face. That all, puts you at risk of violating the Brown Act. So don't do that. Like I say, it's a big document. If you've got any questions, I'll try to answer them. But that is the Brown Act. And like I said, the last one was, it really is, if you knowingly violate this law to conceal information from the public, it is a misdemeanor. I don't know that we've ever had anybody, we've certainly never had anybody in this city prosecuted for that, but don't be the first.
Great, thank you. That was very informative. Do any of my colleagues have any comments or questions?
I have a question regarding the teleconference. Is that why we went away from it?
I think that was part of it. It probably just the technical hurdles became too deep. Again, you have to balance. The Brown Act requires you to balance spreading the information to as much of the public as possible versus actually getting your work done. And if we find a meeting, interrupted for an hour while you try to get the phone connection working again, or if other people are calling in and they can't hear, or we can't hear them, I think the decision was made probably to just go to a simpler system, and maybe years from now it'll be revised. But for right now, we figured we would do what works best and what is the most efficient for both you guys and the public.
And I want to say there was legislation that was passed that kind of ended the, remote meetings in there, kind of requiring.
Governor order, I believe. It was a governor's order.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of weird things happened during COVID. And it's not, the Brown Act also is not just about what you guys can say and when you can say it. There's other things too. You cannot, you can't violate specific provisions of the Brown Act. Say you can't violate laws, governing discrimination. You can't, pick a particular race or religion or whatnot and say those people aren't allowed inside the meeting. The facility that we conduct this in has to be ADA compliant, so that if you're disabled, you can still come in and be part of the process. So it's not totally aimed at you folks. It's aimed at us as well, as far as how we establish the agendas and how the meeting is set up and run.
Any other questions?
Yeah, quick question. And regarding the Brown Act, how does would it apply for example, like Zoom? I know Zoom was giving the city issues, but if there's a call-in feature, then that would circumvent the need to have the Zoom.
When we had Zoom, except for the very early days of COVID, when we had the Zoom feature, you were also able to come in person and speak. And if we had to, we probably could have in a Zoom situation, because we had posted the physical location of the meeting. If we had technical problems that prevented us from using the Zoom, we probably could have continued. We chose not to do that wherever possible. But like I say, now with this system, if it goes down, the public can't hear what's going on, which is unfortunate, but we haven't deprived anyone of the right to speak, because if they want to speak, the way we've set up the meetings now, they should come down to City Hall, because that's the only technology that we've got working for this right now. There are different rules. If one of you was unable to attend the meeting in person, normally you all have to be within the city limits, but if you're unable to attend, one of you could call in from outside. If you're calling in from inside the jurisdiction, we have to make sure there's at least one other avenue for people to phone in. So we would have a teleconference line. So I know one of the rules that it's not a Brown Act rule, it's a city ordinance, is if any of you miss 3 meetings in a row, you lose your position on this. So rather than being expelled from the commission, you might discover, oh, I've missed the first 2, I need to call in for this one. And we could make arrangements for that, but we don't like to do it, obviously, because it's more difficult for you to participate long distance, and it's better if you can all be up here presenting to the public.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So let's just say for medical reasons, you're going to be out, surgery or whatever for 2 months. Is that when you're saying you would be able to phone in?
Yeah, I mean,
Because we would need a
and I would have to look at the city's ordinance again to see if there is an exemption for medical emergencies. But yeah, what I'm saying, if you had missed 2 meetings in a row and found yourself in danger of missing the third, we could arrange for participation by telecommunication. It's something that's allowed in the Brown Act.
Just for clarity, because I know this has been brought up several times, so if hypothetical, we have a Zoom feature, right, where folks can engage using Zoom. If the Zoom has a call-in feature, because usually has their dial-in feature,
Right.
if the video goes out, but the call-in feature still is effective, that does not disrupt the ability.
That doesn't disrupt that. If you had that system in play and a member of the public was still able to use that to get his 3 minutes at the microphone and give his comments to you, then it's, no harm, no foul. They can't see your lovely faces, but they can, or you can't see theirs, but they can at least get their message to you, which is what the Brown Act is all about.
Thank
They
you.
would need another source of broadcast though, right?
Well, I think the question was if there's a hiccup in the Zoom broadcast, so that the video is gone, but the audio is still working.
Okay.
The two-way audio is still working. That's just like calling in over a two-way conference call, which would work as well. And I think we probably, before Zoom became so prevalent, there may have been instances where there was essentially a conference call feature, and folks were allowed to be unmuted by a control here to allow
Mhm.
participation that way.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions. First, related to public participation in the chambers.
Mhm.
I vaguely remember as a high school student coming to a couple council meetings here, having had those comment cards back in those days. This is like the late 90s or early 2000s.
Well,
I don't know when that got
I think
instituted.
LA City Council still does that.
Yeah. And so I remember there being rules of quorum there. And I think I've seen Cudahy and maybe Downey have that on their agendas. Is that something that
You,
how are they able to do that without limiting freedom of speech? Because I know that I think some of the things listed were pretty much, what kind of vocabulary to use, whether you could use profanity and all that, or
those were probably suggestions. I mean, the limits you can place is, it has to be a city issue, and we're only going to allow you 3 minutes to speak. Profanity is profanity, and everybody has heard a little bit of it. If someone wants to devote his entire speech to throwing curses at you folks, that's something that is an unruly speaker that you have the right under the Brown Act to silence and remove. So I would think it's, I mean, there is a decorum. I know Raul Salinas is likes to remind the crowd when there's a hearing that it is like a court procedure, and you're expected to be quiet and polite and respectful when you're in a court, and we would anticipate that you all do the same thing here. So there are ways that you can go about fostering polite conversation, but no, you're right. You couldn't say don't come up here and speak against this proposal. I mean, you can say you can only talk during the individual agenda items. You can, we're speaking about number 14, sir. If you want to say something not about 14, wait till the end of the meeting when we have the open session. You can do things like that.
Got it. And then as far as agendized items, at the state level, I was used to having presentations included within the posted agenda.
There's two of them on tonight's agenda.
Yeah, I saw that.
This agenda, and John's got another one. And yes,
But-
because you do need to let the public know, even if you're not taking action on it, you need to let the public know what you are going to be discussing.
And my question is, since that hasn't always been the issue with other staff prepared presentations related to particular items, is that something that they're obligated to post at some point thereafter?
You do have leeway as far as what you can do for non-agendized items. If a member of the audience during the open session or even during the unagenda, if they ask a question, you are able to respond. You're not required to respond, but you are able to respond. You are able to ask staff questions, and you're able to ask staff to come back with more information. You've done that before when we've got a CUP for a liquor license application, and you might say, can you come back to us next month and let us know, talk to the police department and let us know how many calls you've had for rowdy behavior outside of liquor stores or things like that. So there are certain things you can do. You just can't engage in extended conversations about non-agendized items, and you certainly can't take any action about something that's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I got that. I was just curious about the presentation aspect.
And there are there are exceptions even to that 72-hour rule. If there was an emergency, if God forbid there's an earthquake right now, and we need to do some things that are emergency actions that you might need to take, there's an exception for that. If we get something that comes into us, say this morning, that the staff felt was of such an urgent nature that you folks needed to hear about it and deal with it now, there are provisions in the Brown Act for abbreviated notice procedures or no notice procedures in some events. So it's not an ironclad rule, but every time you say that something's an emergency or you don't use that 72-hour notice, you run afoul of people complaining that any action that you take was not authorized. So we try to avoid that.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions? No?
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
So, yeah, John.
Oh,
We do have an audience comment.
yes.
Okay.
So an email was received from Mr. Mario Dominguez. Mario raised several questions and concerns. First is, can public comment be reopened after it is closed if a resident has relevant information? Can staff respond to residents after public comment ends, or does the Brown Act prevent this? Second question is, why won't the city attorney disclose lawsuit settlements like LA County does? Third question is, can residents request agenda items they feel excluded from city council decisions? Fourth is, what are the rules if a Zoom or call-in feature fails during meetings, and can meetings continue without them? And that's the only public comment.
That's a lot of you can forward the email to me and I can respond.
Alrighty. So, We don't need to take a motion in this, right? I don't see.
No,
one on
no,
the
you just
agenda.
need to receive and.
Yeah, I mean,
receive
it
and
would be
file.
proper to open it up to the public in case anybody else wants to speak.
Anybody else want to speak on this? No? Young man? All right, we'll close the public comment section. Did you say we have to receive and file or?
That's the normal procedure.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Great, a second?
I'll second.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Osaeta,
Yes.
Commissioner Valenzuela,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Prieto,
Yes.
Chairperson Ruiz.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. So now on
I-
to the next item, a workshop review types and responsibilities, Municipal Code Section 11.51.030.
Thank you, Chairperson Ruiz. We wanted to have these workshops as a kind of a training session for the commission. We have a new chairperson, vice chair, and we also have 2 new commissioners. So we thought it would be a good idea at this time to really just have these training sessions. The one here before you is really focused on section 11.51.030. And thank you. That one is in regards to the review types and responsibilities in our code. It's in regards to the permit types that we have that I'll get into. So there's a table in this section, and that table lays out the responsibilities of who gets to approve what type of permit. On the left-hand column, you see the permit process there. There are various types of permits. The administrative permit types are the ones that are approved at the director level. So you have the administrative permit, you have temporary use permits and design reviews. Those are all approved by the director. So the director is the deciding body. That D there stands for deciding body whose decision is final unless appealed. If the director's decision is appealed for any of those permits, then that appeal goes to the planning commission. And the planning commission would take that item under consideration. That appeal will be under a public hearing, which would be required. That would come to your body, this body here. And the planning commission would decide on the administrative permit, the temporary use permits and design reviews. And then once the planning commission makes a decision, that decision is also appealable to the city council. City council has authority to consider that appeal. It is a public hearing as well, and the action taken by the city council on that appeal would be final once that's made. So those are just some of the permits that the director approves: administrative permits, temporary use permits, and design reviews. It's a little bit unusual though, but I guess those would be considered administrative, but there's still some discretionary portions in those. There's a lot of other permits that are approved at the director level, including accessory dwelling units, SB9 units, and other house additions, tenant improvements for commercial and industrial spaces. Those are all done at the director level. They never get seen by the planning commission. But in terms of these administrative permits and temporary use permits, those are seen as having a little bit of discretion on the director. And again, those are appealable to the planning commission and eventually city council. The next one down there is a discretionary permit process under the permit process types. Those include, those are the type A's, process A's, conditional use permits, variances, and plan reviews, or otherwise known as site plan reviews. Those are permits that are approved by the planning commission. So the planning commission is a deciding body. There is a public hearing required for those permits. We notice residents within 1,000 feet of the subject property, and we also put a notice in the Daily Breeze 10 days prior to the public hearing before it becomes before the planning commission. The planning commission will make an action on the permits, either the conditional use permits, variances, or site plan reviews, and that action is appealable to the city council. So if the applicant or somebody wanted to appeal the decision of the planning commission, they have 10 working days after the planning commission's decision to appeal that to the city council. And then the city council would review that action, have their own public hearing, and make a decision on the project. And that project that decision is eventually the ultimate decision. And then one step down there, the discretionary permit process B. Under permit process, those are density bonuses, specific plans, and regulatory plan zoning amendments. Density bonuses deal with housing, providing affordable housing. Specific plans are larger areas, specific areas where we have certain regulations for. In our city, we have the Tweedy Boulevard and the Hollandale Village specific plans. We also have one that's a little less known, which is the, I guess, Recycling City specific plan.
Can you
and-
repeat that?
It's the Recycling City specific plan.
Recycling cities,
It's
huh.
a little area, I guess, off of, I want to say Rayo and Atlantic, in that area,
Oh.
south of Firestone. And there's specific requirements for that specific plan area. So under discretionary permit process B, for those permits, the planning commission is the advisory body. So you would make a recommendation, you would have a public hearing, look at that density bonus specific plan or zoning amendment, zone change, and make a recommendation to the city council. And then the city council would be the ultimate deciding body for those permits. The last one down there is discretionary permit process C. Down at the bottom, we have final parcel maps and live and entertainment permits. And those go directly to city council. They would be the deciding body for those. So going back to the very top of that, the administrative permit types, where you have the administrative permits, the temporary use permits, and design reviews. This is a flow chart that's found in section 11.51, figure 11.51-1 for the administrative permit application process. And I do have the pointer here. So once an application is submitted for an administrative permit application, that gets reviewed by staff. The community development director takes a look at that and makes a decision. The director can either approve that permit application or deny it. And the decision of the community development director is appealable. So anybody can appeal that action. That appeal would go to the planning commission, and there is a public hearing required for that appeal. The planning commission would make a decision on that, either approving it or denying it. And if there is no appeal, then that action ends. That's the final decision. The applicant can then go on to the building safety plan check if necessary, and continue on with that permit. But if there is an appeal with the planning commission's decision, that appeal goes over to the city council, and there is a public hearing, and ultimately the decision of the planning commission or the city council is the final decision, either approving or denying that. The next flow chart we have are for the discretionary permit process A's. Those are the conditional use permits, variances, and site plan reviews that go before the planning commission. The planning commission is a deciding body on those actions. Once the discretionary permit application is submitted, staff would usually review that and get back with the applicant until we have a complete application. So usually there's deficiencies or questions with the plans, the applications that they have there. There's usually additional information that's required, and there's usually some back and forth between staff and the applicant on those applications. But once we find the application complete and ready to go before the planning commission, we would send out the public hearing notice, and then we'll have the planning commission hearing. Again, the decision by the planning commission is appealable to the city council, and so if appealed, then the city council will take the action to either approve or deny.
Can you give some examples of discretionary use permits?
Sure. Yeah. So we have conditional use permits, and those are conditions or they're uses that the city has, like it's a higher level of review on. So I know for alcohol sales, we have there's a conditional use permit required for those. Those are required to be approved by the planning commission. There is a public hearing process involved, so we notify neighbors within 1,000 feet. And so again, conditional use permits are those types of uses that we see we require more discretion for approval. And then you have variances. Variances are deviations from our municipal code in regards to the development standards. So there might be like setback requirements where they're not able to meet the setback. Say the front yard is 20 feet, but they need to be they can't meet the 20-foot requirement. They need to be closer to the street. And so instead of 20 feet, they ask for, they ask to be 10 feet away from the property line. That would be a variance request. There has to be some sort of special hardship there in order for the planning commission to approve a variance request. And then the site plan reviews, there are certain types of projects in our code that are identified. And we can go into that in more detail, maybe in another workshop, but there are certain types of uses or developments that require a higher level review that's subject to site plan review. And that also is under the discretion of the planning commission.
Got it. Thank you.
And then our next permit type, process B, those are the density bonuses, specific plans, and the zoning amendments. Those are permits that the planning commission takes a recommending role on. They're advisory to the city council. So say like with a zone change or an ordinance amendment, it would come before the planning commission body. Once staff reviews it, we find it to be complete, we would notice it for public hearing with the planning commission, and we would also usually send out send it out to the residents if it's project specific. So like a zone change would be, I guess, property specific, and so we would notice residents and owners within 1,000 feet of the subject property. If it's like a ordinance amendment where, say, there's a requirement in our code that's being changed and it affects the entire city, then that's something that we would notice in the newspaper alone, because we have a lot of properties within the city, and noticing it to every single property in the city would be, really time-consuming and expensive. So our code allows us to put that in the paper. But those again are actions that would the planning commission would be the recommending body. You would review that and then make a recommendation over to the city council, and ultimately the city council has the authority in making decisions on those permits. And then the last one, the process C, are the final parcel maps and live entertainments that are reviewed at the city council level. And so just to give you an idea of how many permits we actually see, these are just some of the permit approvals. They're not all of the approvals that come before the community development department. They're just some of them. But in 2024, this is the numbers that we reported in our, our end of the year report earlier this year. And it was reported under our housing, our progress report over to HCD. But we had 105 residential units that went through and were approved administratively at the staff level. 86 accessory dwelling units, 15 junior accessory dwelling units, and some multifamily units, and it looked like we had one SB 9 units. But those are all permits that were done at the staff level administratively. They're not all the projects that we looked at, because there was also commercial and industrial projects that is reviewed at the staff level, usually commercial tenant improvements. So that never gets brought before the planning commission. That's all done at the staff level ministerially. And just to give you an idea of what comes before the planning commission since January 2024 to now, June of 2025, the planning commission's seen about 12 projects, or you've made actions on 12 items on there. You've approved 9 resolutions, denied 2. Those are for the Alameda Truck Yard facility. And there was one that was approved by the planning commission. That was the SoFi project that went to city council on appeal, and city council ultimately denied that one. So just to give you an idea, in a period of about 18 months, you've looked at, 12 projects in total, where in 2024, just in the 12-month period, staff has looked at 105 administrative permits, and that's just a portion of what staff has actually looked at. We've looked at a lot more than that. So I guess the point is that the projects that come before planning commission is really just a small part of all the development happening in our city.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, then you have certain appeals that get forwarded over to the city council. And we've only seen a handful. There's actually been 3, I guess, in the last several months. You had the SoFi project, you had the City Ventures more recently, and then you had the gosh, what was the other one? The Engel project, the SoFi project, and the City Ventures
Della.
project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those three were came before the Planning Commission and were eventually appealed to City Council, and they would make the ultimate decision. So at the staff level, we review, I guess, a larger number of projects, and then at the Planning Commission, there's a smaller number of projects there that you take a look at, and then at the City Council, there's even a smaller number that gets reviewed by them. And so we just wanted to give this workshop to let you know how, what type of projects that, we're looking at. This is, I guess, is probably one of the first of many workshops we're probably planning to look at. If there's any other items that the Planning Commission is interested to learn more about, other sections in our code that you're looking to look at, let me know, and we could have that at a future meeting. But that's our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, anybody?
Regarding your charts, which one would fall under the temporary certificate of occupancy?
So that's one that actually is not in the planning division portion. It's more of the building official role. And usually when projects come in, they're reviewed first by the planning division. We take them in, we'll review that, we'll give an approval, and we'll send that over to the building division. And then it goes into building plan check. They review that for structural and other requirements. And then they're the ones that actually issue the building permit. I don't know if Craig has any more to say about that.
Yeah, the reason for that is the function of this body is to decide on how property is used, not how it gets built. So the certificates of occupancy are at whole an endorsement by the city's building inspector that the building has been constructed in accordance with city laws and the state building codes, which is not something that you need to concern yourselves with. You figure that the building is going to be built the way that the city contractors overseeing it do it. Your role is to decide how property may be used, which is why you're looking at conditional use permits. Can we sell alcohol here? Can he paint a mural on the side of his building? Things of that nature versus just the bricks and sticks.
So for say for example, for administrative review, the items that get approved by that body, in essence, staff, how does that, what kind of oversight goes into that in regards to the types of projects that get approved? Are there quarterly reports that are provided to council, or that's just a question.
Yeah, so we have a list of uses in our code. Some of them require administrative review, administrative permit. And then there's a requirement in there that if a property is more than 15,000 square feet, it's subject to design review, which is also administrative. And so when we identify a project being subject to administrative approval, the applicant would they'd submit their application, we would review that. Under the Permit Streamlining Act, the Planning Division has 30 days to respond back to the applicant on determining if it's a complete application or not. Usually there's corrections in there, not only for completeness, but I guess there's two checks. There's one for completeness to make sure everything's there, and there's also a conformance check to make sure that what's being proposed meets our zoning requirements, our zoning standards. So staff would do that. At staff level, we'll respond back within 30 days, get a letter back over to the applicant. They would address those concerns, comments, address any issues or items that haven't been submitted, and resubmit that over back to staff. Staff would take another look at that. Sometimes there's additional comments on top of that. But ultimately, once it's found to be satisfactory, everything's there, it's complete, then we would make a decision on the project.
And another thing, you are more of a policy board. A lot of those, you saw 151 versus 12 coming to you. A lot of the things that staff looks at in an administrative review is, gee, they met the minimum standard for 12 parking spaces here, but should we really require 13? Or can we let them get by with 11? Or, yeah, they want to go 10% beyond the minimum setback, and we've got the authority to do that. Those are the types of things that A, the staff has more expertise about than you do, and B, you don't want to be bothered with. I mean, you weren't appointed to deal with the nitty-gritty construction details or design details of, is that parking lot at the right angle, or is the sidewalk too close to the building? It's more of a more broad use. Is that the type of use we want to allow in this neighborhood, or are there mitigating factors that we need to impose on this use before we say you can do it? So that's why a lot of things that don't come to you is not because they're not important, but it's just, it falls outside of the realm of what you folks are called upon to do for the city.
And our last time we did a comprehensive update of our zoning code was back in 2015. We've done a number of amendments since then, but from what I've seen, it just seemed like what the city was trying to do was take a lot of those uses and put them at the administrative level where the director can approve them, rather than having to go to the planning commission. Part of that is because, the city is looking to be maybe more business friendly. And so it is time consuming and costly for an applicant to have to go before the planning commission at a public hearing. So if there are certain uses that, that aren't an issue, then, cities would usually take that and lower it down to staff level approval.
Sorry. Maybe this, because I think this is helpful, very informative, is what you often hear business friendly. What does that mean to city staff in regards to being more business friendly?
Yeah, so I mean, it could mean many things. I would think for a city council looking to be more business friendly, meaning allowing businesses to come into the city. It brings certain uses, it brings jobs into the city. It could establish some tax revenue, so it could be a benefit to the city. On the flip side of that, there could be negative effects with bringing in certain businesses into the city. If they're really truck intensive, the trucks may rip up the roads a lot more, and there's a lot more wear and tear on our roads. If there's no source of revenue there, then there's really, they're coming in, they're benefiting from all the the benefits of being able to do the use, but then the city gets nothing from it. There's no sales tax, there's no other type of maybe very little property tax, and so there's there could be more of a downside of having certain uses come into the city rather than
Business friendly doesn't mean circumventing like existing codes and any of that, right?
No, it doesn't mean turning a blind eye to the municipal code or state regulations. It is balancing the interest of the public in general and the property owners, and making sure the city functions in a way that a city is supposed to work. And I think you've got some.
I was just going to add, when I've seen cities do this, they want supposedly like business friendly. More of it is like saving time and money in the process. So, for example, if you have something that goes to planning commission or city council, some cities try to move to the direction of allowing for more administrative approvals, because it does take more time to go to planning commission and council. Sometimes those projects get appealed. It also requires more money sometimes. So if you have to go to planning commission or city council, there's a public noticing fee. And so those are all part of a business decision by a developer or business. So that's usually why I've seen it, if it's to save time or money in the process.
Any other questions? No. I had a question related to the conditional use permits. Is it always at our discretion to have something come back to us for revision? Or maybe revision's the wrong word, but what comes to mind is the Target conditional use permit we gave for the alcohol sales. That was one item that we kind of stipulated that we would, take a look again. I forget what the time frame was, but is that something that is typically kind of has that flexibility?
I think you've made a practice with all the alcohol related CUPs to have a 6-month review to make sure that once the business is using that alcohol permit, have there been any problems? Has, are there, drunken fights every night in front of the store now that they're selling alcohol, or is it behaving itself? You've done that. The way the municipal code and the zoning code is set up is that there are certain uses in the city which you can do by right. If you want to go in and open a bookstore, you can do it, and we can't say anything about it as long as you're complying with the codes. Others, like the alcohol sales or other things that may have more of a problem, the zoning code has said, well, while you can do that in the city, you need to have a conditional use permit so that the city and with your approval can impose conditions on how that use. Maybe we need, no, you can't operate past 10 o'clock at night, or you have to always have an on-site security guard, or whatever it is. The goal is, yeah, we want the use, but it brings with it special problems. So we want to be able to impose conditions on how you operate it to alleviate those problems. And part of it is, often we will come up with a list of 36 conditions, and the applicant will say, hey, I'm on board with 33 of those, but can we talk about removing or modifying some of these? And then that's your call, and we have the discussion, and you decide, do we really need this severe restriction? Can we get rid of it entirely? Can we dispense with it partially? So that's the type of, these are the policy decisions that you guys, you don't care if we move the building, 6 inches closer or farther away from the street, but you may care about, let's not have these people operating after 10 o'clock at night, or let's make sure they're shielding the lights so that they're not bothering the neighbors, or things like that.
Right. And as far as administrative permits, something that I caught at at last night's meeting related to the budget was setting stipulations for kind of like the example you gave, John, related to the truck use. Trucks typically wear out roads fast. Who's involved in making those negotiations with the applicant about maybe setting some sort of fund to routinely repair roads heavily accessed by those facilities?
Yeah, our fees are they're set by our city council. The city council adopts the fees.
But one of those is a traffic mitigation fee that sometimes comes into play to account for things like, wear and tear on the road or whatnot. So it's not a fee that you folks can impose, but the city council has established them.
And there's a set like fee schedule related to that, or?
Yeah, there's a fee schedule for just about everything. You can find it if you look hard enough on the city's website. It's a city fee schedule.
I'll look at
And
that. Thank
it's
you.
several pages long.
Yeah, and that fee schedule is also usually updated every now and then because, fees can go up and down. Sometimes if their fees are low, and the city council might take a look at that and want to increase certain fees. And, they've done that in the past.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions? No? How about any public comments related to this?
We do not have any public comments for this.
How about on the chambers? Anybody? No. All righty. So anybody want to move to receive and file?
Make a motion to receive and file.
Any seconds?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Osaeta,
Yes.
Commissioner Valenzuela,
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Prieto,
Yes.
Chairperson Ruiz.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. And thanks for these trainings. They're definitely very, very informative and insightful.
Thank you.
All right. So now on to public comments.
I did receive one public comment in an email from Mr. Mario Dominguez. Mario says that he attended the June 10, 2025 council meeting to request a correction to the municipal code, which currently charges residents 29 cents per page for public records, even when they are emailed. After comparing with nearby cities that provided emailed records for free, Mario questioned why Southgate imposes these fees and criticized the policy as unfair and exploitative. That is only public comment.
How about on these chambers? Any other comments? No? All right. Great. So any city staff comments?
Yeah, I do have some comments. First of all, I'd like to welcome our new planning commissioner, Commissioner Valenzuela.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
And I also want to congratulate our new chairperson,
Thanks.
Chairperson Ruiz, and our new vice chair, Prieto. So thank you for your commitment. And I just wanted to let you know, I know there was a comment earlier about how the agenda is formatted and what we're putting in there. We are working on the agenda. We're sort of cleaning that up. Hopefully it's an improvement, but we are looking to, clean that up in a certain way. We are expecting to have more workshops such as this. So again, if there are items that you'd like to talk about in our code that we can discuss more, feel free to contact me. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that this is our last meeting of the fiscal year. The fiscal year ends on June 30th. And then that's why we kind of had the reorganization at the end of the fiscal year. I also wanted to mention this is Kimberly's, I guess, last meeting over here because we are at the end of the fiscal year. She's cross-training Javier. Javier, he's been with the city for a while, but I guess he's been promoted to our special projects coordinator for a while. And so he'll be taking over Kimberly's position in the upcoming meetings. And so you'll see him. You won't be at least seeing Kimberly at the planning commission meetings, but Javier will be taking over that. So we'll welcome him for that. He's sort of shadowing Kimberly right now. In terms of our next meetings, we do have our meeting coming up on July 1st, but we don't have any items for that. So we're looking at going dark for the July 1st meeting. For the July 15th meeting, I haven't heard that from the other planners that we do have any items going on that one though, but we could have workshops for that meeting. I would want to let the commission know that I will be taking that week off before that meeting. And then Rodrigo will be taking off about from July 10th to July 17th off. So he won't be here for the next meeting. But we could certainly have some workshops or other training sessions for that July 15th meeting. Other than that, our next meeting will be on August 5th. And I believe that there may be some commissioners that are taking some time off as well. So it'd be good to know, if you are planning to be out of the planning, from the planning commission, maybe we could just plan some schedules and figure out which dates we can go dark on. And so that's all.
Great, thank you. Any questions related to that? No. All righty. Any planning commission comments?
I have a comment. Well, I just wanted to thank staff for the agenda and for presenting the presentations. Thank you, Craig. That was really good. I always appreciate the refreshers. And John, I actually like the structure of the agenda. I like that it gives you a brief description of what the action is. So I actually took a lot of notes on those pages. So thank you.
Any other comments? No? Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing, and it might be nitpicky of me to say, but maybe if a lot of these links could be linked to the item or the page on the bookmarked, I think is what you could use on Adobe. Set these links as bookmarks so that they go on the document themselves when you click on them. I don't know if that's too complicated, but if not, I guess it's fine. It's just that the Wi-Fi really is bad here. So when you link on them, when you click on the links, it takes a while for them to populate.
Yeah, I believe for this meeting, I sent out the entire agenda packet because it wasn't that large. But for other meetings where you have, development plans and other attachments on there that are really large, sometimes it's just too
Yeah.
large to email them over. So I only send out the agenda alone. And then I'll put a link on there referring you to the city's website if you want to look at the entire packet.
Yeah, but that's definitely helpful. But yeah, the Wi-Fi connection is kind of being a hindrance because at least for me, when I look at items, I like to bring my computer because I'm able to mark up questions there. But yeah, I'll see what we can do for the more complicated items in the future. But yeah, if there's no other comments, then if I could get a motion to adjourn. Or do we do that here? No, we don't do that here, right? So I guess we just adjourn. I'll call this meeting at 8:01 p.m. Making up stuff now.